Hi, I'm John Cerruto, and welcome to this HTTV special. Today's guest is a community influencer, the CEO of the Hill Group. His name is Kevin Hill, and Kevin, welcome again back to HTTV.
Thank you so much, John. Always a pleasure to be here with the HTTV team and with you.
Well, this is our fourth program, Kevin, and we've touched on so many wonderful things in the past. But today, we're going to talk about really what's inside a person and how they can project that outside. You mentioned the word character quite a bit. What defines character?
Well, I would capsulize the word character by saying character is developed through difficulty, not through ease. It is how we handle the challenging things in life, how we behave, how we respond to those things. And I think that helps. That is an element of defining character. They say in life, it's about 10% of what happens to us, but 90% of how we respond. That's character. I also think an additional component to character are very simplistic, everyday behaviors. Keeping your word, being on time, being trustworthy, being accountable, being open minded. I think these are all variations of what character is about, standing for something. They say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I just think, and I mean, we could probably go on and on and on talking about character, but trying to drill down on it, those are some of the most obvious components that I see.
Well, Kevin, and we will as this program progresses, but interplay character with integrity. Very similar.
I think integrity in the pedestrian terms is doing the right thing when no one's looking. And I think you have to have an element or integration of character because those two things define you. If you have strong character, the opportunity to do the right thing is going to increase, therefore impacting your integrity. How you deal with people, how you resolve conflict, how you resolve any situation in your life, being fair, being honest. Those are both components of both character and integrity. Being someone, like Walter Cronkite was called the most trusted man in America. Why? Because of how he behaved and how he responded to things. He made America trust him. And I think on a much more smaller scale, or in whatever world you're in or community, those actions and behaviors will define character, and principles are also an important part of integrity and character. You can't have principles when it's convenient for you. You have to have them all the time, or they're not principles.
Well, Kevin, let me ask you this, right? Because you and I, again, we've had many conversations here in the past, and we're trying to reach out to people of all ages. And there are some people who are troubled, and their character's weak, their integrity's weak, but they don't want to be there. They don't want to be weak. They don't want to be in that position anymore. How do they turn that around?
I'm going to speak from personal experience, and we've talked about this on prior shows. I came from an environment, as you know, that was extremely troubled. Many dysfunctions and difficulties growing up. And I honestly, and I say to you unequivocally and without reservation, I did not know how I was going to move forward. But the stabilizing force in my journey was hope. Hope is the companion of success. Hope is the companion of love. Hope is the companion of many, of achievement. So I held on to hope and I was able to move forward. And I think with hope, you have to open your mind and your heart. And I think action, they say faith without works is dead. You have to go out and do some work. Whether that is aligning yourselves with healthier people, whether that is immersing yourselves in activities that's going to help you grow and mature, maybe doing research and reading. It can be a combination of many, many things. But in spite of adversity, which we talk about all the time, you have to keep moving forward, and you can do that with hope. If you choose hope, anything is possible.
And with hope, to get to hope, you must be resilient, as you've mentioned in the past.
Absolutely.
Kevin, you've got to make quality decisions in life and on all different levels. There's the personal, there's the business, there's the organizational. Let's talk about making personal quality decisions. And again, let's talk about that person who was down and out, who now needs hope. They have to help themselves to some degree before they can reach up and maybe get that mentor. You know, how do you make those quality decisions? Can they start very basic?
I think the genesis of that process is looking within yourself. Now, let's be fair here. When you're in a very difficult environment and you don't have those tools, how are you going to get them? And I think once again, you use the word perseverance. You have to take steps that are uncomfortable for you. And that word will always be peppered through our conversation. You have to make a choice that I'm going to do better. And if you want to change the world, start with the person in the mirror. So you have to make a concerted choice that I'm going to change. When you accept that and you're willing to follow and execute on those things, you'll be amazed how much the world opens up. But every journey starts with the first step, and the first step is you.
All right, so now let's transition that into a business environment, okay? You've been involved with many organizations where there's been changes. And with that, oftentimes the culture always does change or needs to be changed. All right, how do you go about getting the people involved to change to that new culture?
I've had many situations that reflect your question. And I think there's no one way. I think it's a variety of ways, but I'll share some of the things I've done. The first thing is to treat people with courtesy and respect. And I will meet with people as a team or individually to discuss what the new direction will be. Sometimes you can't expect people to understand what your expectations are until you communicate those to them. So that's what I try to do to establish dialogue, communication, and effective communication. So they understand what we're trying to accomplish. Now, what'll happen, and it's been my experience, you'll go into environments where certain behaviors and certain actions have been tolerated. You've had employees for 20 years. They've been doing it this way. And now you have to tell them you won't be doing it that way anymore. And that causes resistance and that causes pushback. But the bottom line is, as a leader, if everybody did what they were supposed to do, you wouldn't need leaders. So I just think that that's the start of communicating. Now, your behavior has to reflect those values and the things you believe in. You've got to behave in that capacity as well. That you need to be an example of that. They need to see you. And hopefully the perception is, wow, this guy does what he believes in. And I think those are two ways to start the process. Now, the challenge and the most difficult thing is enforcing that. When people don't comply with new protocols, new policies and procedures, then you have to take action sometimes. And you do this not to be belligerent, but you do this to show, you have to show the entire organization that this is not going to be tolerated anymore. And the last resort is for me to take this action, but I have no doubt in your mind that I will take it. And I think when the amalgamation of these things at least helps to create a new environment or a new culture.
What is it about change that people often are resistant to?
Fear.
In what way?
Even if change is good for some people, they fear it. You and I just recently had a conversation about individuals who are offered greater employment opportunities, more benefits, they can do more for their families, all these good things, but they're still reluctant to do it. I guess a component of this, an ingredient of this could be self-esteem. It could be fear, once again, uncomfortability. I think there are a lot of things, and doubting oneself is clearly, can I do this? And the response should always be, yes, I can. Remember, you may be disappointed if you fail, but you're doomed if you don't try. And I just think that there are many situations people also become overwhelmed with something. They want something intellectually, and then when it finally presents itself, what do I do with this? So I think you have a number of reasons, and I think what helps you to overcome this is self-belief. And I also think we always talk about having a network of people to talk to. It is always advantageous and beneficial to talk to other people. Somebody might say, you have great interpersonal skills. Sometimes we need reinforcement or assurance. So I think talking to other people helps in developing this desire, this tenacity to move forward and know that you can do anything. Remember, things seem impossible until you do them.
Well, you also talk a little bit about the comfort level. And, you talked before about being uncomfortable and how important it is to become uncomfortable. But yet, again, do you think that's a big part of the resistance?
Absolutely. A comfort zone is a nice place to be, but nothing ever grows there. Growth is in uncomfortability and dealing with things sometimes that are unfamiliar to us. We don't understand. That's new. That's different. The question is, can we tolerate those feelings until we get through this process? That's the real question. It's not about the task or the objective or the organization. It's about you. Can you tolerate feeling like that until you get to the other side?
In your travels, Kevin, over the years to different companies and different organizations, I know that there have been many leaders that you've admired. We've talked about them. And there are some of them that you might have discounted their abilities. Talk about the qualities. Is it an iron fist that leads? Is it somebody who shows compassion? Is it somebody who is more to the strategy of what's been laid out? What brings out a good leader?
I think in those characteristics that you just proposed, sometimes it's all of them. There are different leaders and different leadership styles. My master's thesis was called The Practice of Servant Leadership Characteristics and Its Impact on Job Satisfaction. They're transformational leaders, transitional leaders, democratic leaders, leaders that empower, and so forth and so on. And I think the employing those things, it depends on the environment. Or sometimes in the beginning stages of an organization, it might require this disciplinary and hard fist approach. But as you're able to accomplish the things you want and you see the organization moving in the right direction, then compassion, understanding, support, all those are critical. And I think for me, one of the greatest lessons of leadership is listening, making sure people feel that they're heard. Now, there's a caveat to that. Just because you listen doesn't mean you're going to be able to solve everybody's problems and do what everybody wants. But people know they've been heard, and they know they have value, and they know they mean something. So I think you can take these different approaches based on what's present. You can go into an environment where they're resistant to leadership. Well, being compassionate is not going to move that along in the beginning. It may at some point. You may go into an organization that everything has always been the status quo. Now, what do? I want to elevate performance. Now you need empowerment. Now you need motivation. So it's all these different things. You want the job, just because you are a leader doesn't mean you've been handed a crown. It means you've been handed the responsibility to bring out the best in others and move the organization in a positive direction.
Continuing education, Kevin. You had mentioned before that education is lifelong. All right. What can you advise young people to do besides outside of their corporate environment, their work environment? What can they do to retool, to educate themselves on their own?
Look, listen, and learn. Sometimes in life we win, sometimes in life we lose. But if we're fortunate, sometimes we learn. And I think there are a variety of avenues and vehicles available to young people. Get involved in your community, volunteer, take extra educational courses or commitments. They're all read more, associate yourself with people outside of your comfort zone. So you learn and you grow. Once again, there is growth and development in uncomfortability. So you have to challenge yourself, but you have to be committed to that challenge. That, okay, I may not know how to do this right, but I'm going to seek advice. I'm going to seek guidance. I'm going to seek mentorship on how to do this. I'm going to go to the local food bank. Because what you'll see is you'll see people from all sides of the equation. That's a learning experience. That's the human condition, where you see society at its best, at its challenges. How do we deal with it? So there are a variety of iterations that you can use to grow as a young person to be the best you can be.
And it develops perspective.
Absolutely.
And I know that's an overused word, but perspective runs very, very deep. And you just talked about that right there, about educating yourself by seeing these different levels of life. And it comes back and you process it yourself and you say, okay, now I have a feel of where I am and what I can do. Kevin, talk a little bit about change of environment. All right, we talk about, and I'm talking about the physical change of environment, whether it's just getting out of, in our area here, we see the same communities, the same towns, the same roads. Sometimes we need to be stimulated. And not everybody can afford to hop on a plane and take these long trips, but just like a day trip and different things, similar to what you just talked about. Talk about the importance of a change of environment.
I've got a couple of thoughts on that, but I want to you talked about perspective. I just want to make one point. Remember, in life, you could have sight, but no vision. It's not what you see, it's what you're looking at. So I just want to kind of attach that to perspective. Now, we are fortunate. We are very close to New York City, which is a mecca of culture. From museums to plays to restaurants to businesses to this cornucopia of people and cultures. Spend a day in New York and your mind will be open and you will see there's various sections: Chinatown, Little Italy, Soho, and all these great places. It is a great place to open your mind, and there's so much culture and art available to you, and just everything's available to you. It's a 40-minute trip from from Short Hills, from Millburn, from Summit. So that's one thing. But I had another thought that has helped change my mind and my perspective. I volunteer for Habitat of Humanity. I've sat on their board. I go into Newark, and I've built houses since 2005. Now, I should preface that by saying I'm the last person you want in your house with a hammer or tool of any kind, but I go. And when I come back home, I also volunteer for a group called Family Promise, which helps homeless families in transition. And I use this to say, when I go to Newark or Patterson or wherever I'm going to help someone, when I come back, I've got a greater appreciation. I've got a different perspective. All of a sudden, what was a challenge in my life doesn't seem so challenging. I remember when I started, I just mentioned to you, I had lunch with the CEO of Bridges, which is also an organization that helps homeless people yesterday. And I remember doing some volunteering. I came home and I opened my door. And I just looked at the key and I said, these families don't have a key. So I think if you really want to change your position, your perspective, go walk in someone else's shoes. Go see how other people live or what's going on. So you can go to New York City and be uplifted, and you can go to Newark or Patterson or one of these towns and gain some real perspective.
Very, very good advice, Kevin Hill. And again, you know, those opportunities are offered to every single individual. Now, how does somebody go about making that contact? Do they just look online, or do they make a call to a certain organization?
It is as pedestrian as walking into an organization saying, I want to volunteer. Trust me, they will not turn you away. I would also suggest, too, you want to know what's important to you. Is it hunger and security with like Grace down the street? Is it homelessness? Is it mentoring? So I would suggest doing some research and finding out what is close to your heart. Where do you think you can make the greatest difference? What do you want to do? What's going to enhance your life and make it better? And you do some due diligence and some research, you find out. You make a phone call, you show up, you call somebody you know is volunteering. There are a cadre of organizations in our community and other communities in this country who always need help. One thing never changes in this country. There's always somebody who needs help, and we have to be ready to help them.
And what happens when you help somebody?
You help yourself.
That's what I was hoping you
You
would
help
say, as you
yourself.
always have. Kevin, you saw a group of interns here at the studio prior to this shoot, and you know they're young people, and they're being mentored by our studio manager, Amanda Olson, and other people. You've done a lot of mentoring. How important is it for those young people to have a mentor to guide them as they move forward? Do they realize that they are being mentoring, you think, or you think it's something that happens afterwards?
I would evaluate that on an individual basis, but I would certainly say I hope they understand the impact and significance of being at an HTTV, being mentored, knowing that they can ask questions. And if this is an industry which they aspire to be employed by at some point, you have an opportunity here to learn everything you can, to ask questions. And I know Amanda Olson extremely well and know how competent she is and creative. And of course, I know you and the team. I have no doubt that when these interns ask a question or being involved in a project, that they will be given the greatest guidance and leadership that someone can get. And I would say to the interns, be mindful of that and utilize it to the best of your ability.
Okay, share one story of your life, if not two,
Okay.
of somebody that mentored you.
All right. I have so many great examples, but I will use Bill Anderson, who we both know. Bill Anderson is a Summit resident, was a senior guy at Prudential. I think he ran Prudential's real estate investment business. But the one thing that is unbelievably clear about him is his community, and service to his community is everything. So the mentorship, I told this story before. Bill and I co-chair the Lena Willis Endowment Fund. And we not only evaluate proposals and issue grants, we go out and do the work. We build houses. We volunteer for the homeless. We mentor people. With Elizabethport, one of the things we do, the Connection, all these organizations. And when I started to connect, Bill said, well, Kevin, you don't have to come to everything. And I like telling the story. And I go, but you do. So the mentorship there was not necessarily on the business side, but he was saying to be a successful human being, you have to give back. You have to show up for other people. That was huge in my life. Now it is my life. And I would also say, on being a competent executive, I referenced George Martin, who I worked for at Studley, which is a international real estate firm. And George was reasonable and fair and honest in business. And it wasn't just about generating revenue. It was about doing it the right way. So I took many lessons from him to be my goal was to be a great businessman, a great leader. And I took those ingredients from him that I watched him execute every day. So those, and you know what? Sometimes somebody can mentor you and you don't know it. They don't know it. You're just watching that example, and it's an old adage, you never know who's watching. But those are two individuals that helped create this comprehensive, Kevin, this on both sides of the equation. And they're both people, George has passed on, that I respect. Bill is still here, and I see him all the time, and just a great influence in my life. Also, let me also add this. I came from an environment where I had no really good role models. And I didn't have, so I really needed people like that to watch their behaviors and their actions.
Well, you said something key here too, Kevin. Oftentimes it's watching, as you said. It isn't what they say to you, but what they're saying just by their actions and what you're observing and comprehending. Kevin Hill, as we wind this program down, we talked about character, integrity, quality decisions. For the audience, real short summary of working that all together. You need all three of those components you need the two components to make the third one work.
That is correct. I would say to our audience that if you are fortunate to develop high moral character, if you are fortunate to be able to exhibit integrity in your life every day, you will make quality decisions because those two principles will guide you. So if you don't know what these things really are, find out. And when you find out, do everything in your power to implement and execute these behaviors on a daily basis. And if you do that, you're going to make your life better, you're going to make the community better, you're going to make the world better.
So well said, Kevin Hill. And again, can't thank you enough. And I very much look forward to our 5th episode in another month or two. And really well done. And thank you very, very much for joining us with this very important community influencer, Kevin Hill.